Today's video is going to be about the last specialty event, so I'll be doing a guide on the best power spiking team and also announce the winner for both this event and also the last club contest event. Now, before talking about all of this, on a related note, I do want to talk about the value of Ushijima as well, because he is kind of the very first power spiking character we got, and we are going to get a rebanner for him very, very soon in just 2 days' time. So, should you be summoning for him? Now, Ushijima, in my opinion, is probably the most power creep character, and also the character that have lost the biggest value in JP ever since the update of position limit. Now, the reason for this is before position limit update, you are forced to bring one opposite hitter, and the only UR opposite hitter at that point was either Ushijima or also Mia. And Ushijima is just a lot easier to build a team around, and also probably a lot more self-sustained than also Mia. Also, Mia needs a bit more team building, sync around, whereas Ushijima is kind of just like a plug-in and play kind of character. So Ushijima was like probably seeing like 80% of the teams all the way before position limit update. However, as soon as position limit update has been enrolled, the value of Ushijima has literally went down the drain. The reason for this is that you are no longer forced to bring an opposite hitter, and the role of an opposite hitter, to be honest, is very, very similar to Wind Spikers. And because Ushijima is the very first UR character we got, like his kit actually got power crept by quite a bit in terms of the other Wind Spikers, because pretty much like all of the other Wind Spikers hit just as hard, if not harder, than Ushijima, and on top of that, they actually bring other utility in terms of like some kind of like support ability as well. Whereas Ushijima is literally just a power spiker by himself, like he offers no support value. So that's kind of why as soon as position limit update has been introduced, pretty much the value of Ushijima is gone straight away. And that's kind of why if you are still debating whether or not you want to summon for Ushijima, I would seriously ask you guys to consider whether you want to just go for that short-term power gain or whether you want to actually have a character for long-term. Because short-term value-wise, all the way until position limit update, I do feel like the value of Ushijima is still very high, right? He's definitely going to be the most popular opposite hitter, and you need one of them. But as soon as position limit update is available, you probably won't be playing Ushijima, or at least he won't be the most optimal choice anymore. And the other thing is, obviously, we also have SP version of Ushijima coming up very soon as well on the JP side. His kit right now already looks to be pretty much identical. It's almost like a bundled up version of Ushijima plus his memory plus his skill resonance, and that's just the base kit for the SP version. We don't even know how his memory or the skill resonance is going to look like. So even if you just really like Ushijima as a character, would really like his kit, SP version of Ushijima is just going to outclass him in every single way as well. Okay, so just basically, have a think about whether you really want to pull for Ushijima just for that short-term gain, or whether or not it's actually better to just skip him and eventually get someone else and prepare yourself for the position limit update. Okay, so that is basically everything I wanted to kind of tell you guys in terms of my views on UR version of Ushijima. Now let's talk about the actual best power spiking team. Okay, so there are two setters which are going to be for power spiking. It's going to be SPO Oikawa and also SPO Akasshi, and you kind of need to decide which one you want to be on your team. I definitely do not recommend playing both of them together. The main reason is that the two of them are just way too similar. SP Akasshi has the ability of basically forcing whoever he is going to set to basically crit, and also he gives insane amount of like crit damage buff, and that's kind of what SPO Oikawa is also able to do, because SPO Oikawa is actually able to basically increase the awareness for the whole team, and that can eventually stack up to 100% as well. So the two characters are actually very similar, and in terms of the buff he gives, SPO Oikawa also give a lot of crit damage as well. So that's kind of why the two are actually very, very similar, and I just don't think there's any reason why you'll be playing both of them, because they literally just serve the same role in my opinion. So which ones are going to be slightly better? So in order to decide this, we need to take a look at all of the power spiking characters, because this is a power spiking team. So you'll be playing at least 3 or possibly even 4 power spikers on the team. So let's have a look at all of them available and see which one is going to be a better pairing for them. Okay. So first of all, we're going to start off with Ushijima and also SP Kunami. Ushijima, I'm just going to rule him out of this team building completely, because like I said, he's just been power crab by all of the other Wind Spiker and also opposite hitter. So I'm just going to rule him out. And to be honest, if I really have to say, then SP or Oikawa is going to pair better with him, but I'm just going to rule him out right now. And in terms of SP Kunami, both Akasshi and also Oikawa are gonna pair with him pretty nicely because one thing with Kunami is that once his awareness exceeds a certain amount, they will be converted to crit damage. Okay, and both SP Oikawa and also Akasshi is able to do that. So this is kind of a tie for SP Kunami. Then let's move on to the Wind Spikers. There are going to be some obvious choices. So SP Bokuto definitely goes with SP Akasshi with all the synergy in terms of morale and the buff. And also he doesn't really work with SP Oikawa, to be honest. Because one thing with SP Oikawa is that if you want SP Oikawa's buff going on to Bokuto and also allowing SP Oikawa to quickly stack up, attack tempo, etc., you kind of need whoever his diagonally to actually do a lot of attacks. However, SP Bokuto, his ultimate can only be done during Team Morale Awakening, and because Team Morale Awakening is fixed to just 40 morale every single round, basically he can only use his ultimate attack twice in a match, okay? So SP Oikawa is definitely not a good pairing with SP Bokuto. It's going to be very, very painful for you to build up attack tempo this way. So this is going to be a clear winner for SP Akasshi. And then the one clear winner for SP Oikawa is going to be Iwazumi. Not only the fact that Iwazumi naturally get the buff from Oikawa without even needing to be diagonally positioned, but also the thing is that SP Iwazumi get his first of all, his main ultimate attack is actually receive skill, and basically his reflex is increased by his awareness. However, even though both Oikawa and Akasshi increase awareness, Akasshi only increase awareness when he's actually set into the player, and that basically means that will only be valid for when you're actually about to do a spike. But you can't really set to someone who's about to do a receive, right? You receive first, and then you set. So that's kind of why SP. Iwazumi won't actually be able to eat up all of the buff from Akasshi. But that's kind of why Iwazumi is obviously going to be best paired up with Oikawa instead. So we basically have one character each between Akasshi and Oikawa right now. And then in terms of the other Wind Spikers, it's not shown clearly here, but basically there's Hoshiyumi and also Sakusa. Hoshiyumi is going to be a clear winner for Oikawa because of the fact that Oikawa is able to buff all of the stats, and every single stat is useful for Hoshiyumi, so that's a clear winner for Oikawa. And then for Sakusa, Sakusa is also going to be better paired with Oikawa as well, because first of all, Sakusa already can get up to 50% built-in crit by himself. So if you actually use Akasshi to further buff the crit to Sakusa, it's a bit of overkill, with Oikawa is a bit more gradual, so it doesn't matter as much. And then the other thing is that if you do actually play Sakusa opposite to Oikawa, once again, Sakusa is one of the characters who can also benefit from defensive stats, such as because he's also a very good receiver, right? So that's kind of why Sakusa is going to be a better pairing with Oikawa. And even if you don't actually play Sakusa diagonally opposite to Oikawa, one thing Oikawa is able to give is actually reflex stats to the one diagonally opposite. And basically what Sakusa is actually able to do is build up his own buff whenever someone done a critical defensive action. So even if Sakusa is not actually getting that buff directly from Oikawa, the fact that Oikawa is able to buff other people's reflex, and then that can in turn buff up your Sakusa's own stacking of his own buff, it's also going to be very helpful. So that's kind of why Sakusa is also going to be slightly better paired up with SP Oikawa over Akasshi as well. Okay, so now if you actually take a look at all of those options, you then realize that Oikawa is going to be the clear winner between him and also Akasshi. So that's kind of why your setter position is going to go to Oikawa. Now, once you have Oikawa, the next option is going to be very straightforward. You are going to have Iwazumi here. Okay. Now let's take a look at the 4 remaining positions. So what position or what role should they actually be performing? Now, one thing you almost always want to do in terms of team building is that you definitely want 2 blockers, because basically depending on the rotation, if you only have 1 blocker, you will definitely have at least 1 or maybe even 2 turns where you won't be able to block at all, okay? And that is actually going to hurt your team a lot. So that's kind of why even if you have like a weak blocker, it's better than no block. So as a bare minimum, I would suggest every single team, no matter what specialty you're going for, you should have 2 blockers there. And now if you think about there are 4 remaining slots, I need to take up 2 of them for blocking, then that basically only leaves 2 positions remaining. Now those 2 positions obviously have to be power spiking team because you need that offensive power as well. However, is 2 spiker actually going to be enough? Now, some of you might be thinking Iwazuyumi can also spike. So surely, if you add in Iwazuyumi, that's going to be 3 spikers, and that should be more or less enough. But the problem is Iwazuyumi, because his ultimate skill is a receiving skill, he also have the ability to reset his own cooldown for receiving. So he is going to be receiving like crazy every single time. And as a result, the way you want to build his potential is definitely going to be receiving focus, okay? Because that's literally his best selling point, and he will be spamming that all the time. So as a result, if you actually have Iwazuyumi going on a full receiving build, his power attack is going to be very, very weak. Because first of all, his power spike is not even his ultimate attack, so the multiplier is already very low. On top of that, you won't even get any additional stats from your potential. So whilst Oikawa, yes, he can give a bit of a power attacking stats to Iwazuyumi, but unless you actually build Oikawa with a power spiking potential, which to be honest is probably unlikely in this scenario because you'll probably go for Surf instead. I'll talk about why Surf in a bit, but basically as a result, Iwazuyumi is going to have very low power attack stats, and on top of that, also very low multiplier in terms of his power spiking skill. So overall, his attack is not going to be very strong. If we're talking about a power spiking team and your power spike is not even going to be very strong, that's going to hurt your team a lot, okay? So that's kind of why, if you actually think about it this way, I don't even really want to count Iwazuyumi as a power spiker. Like, he can be there every now and then if you really brick yourself with no ultimate skill available. However, vast majority of the time, he's going to be definitely your last choice in terms of spiking. And then that basically means there are only going to be 2 win spikers, or 2 spikers on your team. Is that going to be enough for you to actually rotate around all of your ultimate attack so that you have a spiking skill every single turn? Unfortunately, as it stands right now, with the character we have information, that's not going to be enough, okay? The only one we have right now who you can actually basically spam ultimate attack is going to be SP Kunimi or UR version of Ushijima. Now, UR version of Ushijima already said I'm going to rule him out purely because he just got literally power crap by every single one out there. So I'm not even going to consider him here. And then in terms of SP Kunimi, yes, whilst he can spam his ultimate attack because he literally reset his cooldown for the very first 3 spikes, that's also very annoying because what that basically means is that you can't actually allow his cooldown to naturally wear down whilst you rotate your skills around, because there's going to be a difference between resetting your cooldown instantly for 3 attacks versus just a very short cooldown. If you just have a very short cooldown, what that basically means is you can rotate your skills around so that you basically always have a skill throughout the whole match. However, if you just are able to spam 3 ultimate attack off the bat at the start of the match, yes, you won't have any issue rotating attacks at the beginning. However, as you go towards the end of the match, you're going to end up breaking yourself again, okay? So that's kind of why SP Kunimi is not going to be enough if you're only going to have 2 spikers either. Now, clearly at this point, there's going to be one character who will solve this problem, and that character is going to be in the future. We are going to get SP version of Ushijima. Now, we don't know his full kit yet, but like I said, his kit is already very revealed to be very similar to the UR version of Ushijima, but obviously with a lot higher attacking power. So theoretically, the best optimal solution here would be actually have an SP version of Ushijima in one of those 2 sparking slots, and then you can have then 2 dedicated blockers. However, we don't know the full kit of SP Ushijima, and also that's not actually in the scope of my event, so that's kind of why I'm not going to put him yet. And then instead, what's going to be the other way of actually resolving this issue when we have basically lacking spiking option? The answer is going to be we would have to bring in someone such as Hoshiyumi, who is able to fulfill the role of both one of your 2 blockers, but also able to provide that spiking option so that you never break yourself with no spiking skill available, okay? So that's kind of why the value of Hoshiyumi is going to be very important here. Now, even though he's only a UR character, if you actually position him opposite to Oikawa, Hoshiyumi is going to go crazy because, like I said, every single stat for Hoshiyumi is going to be useful, even quick attacking stats. And Oikawa is literally able to buff every single stat for Hoshiyumi, including quick spiking as well, okay? So Hoshiyumi is definitely going to go crazy if you actually position him diagonally opposite to Oikawa, and that's kind of why he's going to be in this position. Okay, so now with him being in this position, let's talk about the two other wing spiker and also the other blocker that we want. So first of all, rotation was this position is definitely going to be the blocker, because the reason why you want to do this is definitely don't want blocker here, because if you have blocker here, 3 rotations in, you're going to end up with the 3 currently on the back row, and basically you have no blockers. Okay, so the 2 blockers definitely need to be right now starting off on 2 separate rows. So that's kind of what blocker needs to be on one of the position on the back row. And obviously, being a blocker, you probably want to rotate to the front as soon as possible. So that's kind of why this position is going to be the blocker, and those 2 are going to be the wing spiker. Let's start off with the wing spiker first. Okay. So, oh, sorry, by wing spiker, I also include Kunami because he's just also a spiker, okay? So, what are going to be the possible power spiker we have left? We have either SP or UR version Bokuto, but obviously UR version is going to be better, so I'm going to ignore the UR version for now, okay? So, only the SP version Bokuto. We also have Sakusa, and also we have Kunami, and we need to pick 2 out of those 3. Now, what's going to be the best choice? It's going to be clear. It's going to be Kunami plus Sakusa. And the reason for this is I kind of already mentioned earlier, SP Bokuto kind of really need Akasshi in order for him to work. And then the second thing is one of the main reasons why we need to go for 2 spiker here alongside with Hoshiyumi is so that we don't actually brick ourselves in terms of like having no spiking skill. And SP version Bokuto, he can only use his ultimate attack during Team Morale Awakening, which is fixed to just 2 times during the match because he fixed his Team Morale Awakening to just 40 morale points every single turn as well. So as a result, if you actually play SP Bokuto, he's not really gonna solve your bricking issue when you run into a situation where you don't have a spiking skill, okay? So that's kind of why SP Bokuto is not going to be the best choice here. And as a result, the 2 characters you want instead is going to be here, you want to have Sakusa, and here you want to have Kunami. As for the reason why you want to do the rotation this way around is because Sakusa actually have a surfing skill from his skill resonance 2, okay? So that's kind of why he's going to be better here rather than Kunami. So that's going to be the rotation here. And then when you have Sakusa on the field, this is also going to be clear. You're going to have Komori here. Even though I will only be using him for 1 turn, but it's still better than nothing, okay? And the reason why I'm only going to use him for 1 turn is that I'll be subbing out for whichever blocker I have here, okay? So I'll be setting the liberal sub for mid blockers. This will only be on the back row for 1 turn before being rotated to the front. So Komori is only going to be coming out to the field for just 1 turn. Now, mid blockers, what are going to be the choices available? So first of all, you are Kuro, he's going to be ruled out. SP Suki is also going to be ruled out because both of them, well, first of all, you are Kuro just not going to be as good as the other mid blockers, and then SP Suki simply just have lower blocking skill. He's like more offensive mid blocker, so both of them are going to be ruled out because I more want a dedicated blocker. And then that basically leaves us with 3 other possible options, which is going to be Kuro, Hirogami, and also Ahone. To be honest, I think all 3 of them can work. Kuro is quite nice in the sense that he can give a bit of a buff as a receiver. So if you don't really want him to Komori to come on, then you can potentially justify just having Kuro. But because we do have Komori and Komori do have this bond with Sakusa, I do feel like it's a bit of a wasted potential of having SP Kuro here when we can only use half of his kit. So that's kind of why I'm going to rule out Kuro for the time being. And then we're left with Aone and also Hirogami. Now, whilst Hirogami does have a bond with Hoshiyumi, I feel like the buff he's able to provide is going to be diluted by the fact that Oikawa is already able to provide so much buff to Hoshiyumi. On top of that, Hirogami also have a lower stats than Aone as well, so that's kind of out of the 2, I'm actually going to go for Aone. And Aone also have another added benefit, which is that if you actually get him to skill resonance 6, what he's actually going to do is that even when he is not on the court, he's just on the bench, he is also able to provide an increase buffing to the your size blocking ability, and that's actually going to be very useful for Hoshiyumi because before Ionis rotate to the front, Hoshiyumi will be your only blocker. So having Hoshiyumi to have an even stronger blocking ability is actually going to be very nice, and certainly that's a lot more useful than whatever let's say Hirogami or Hoshiyumi is able to provide because they won't even be on the field. So that's kind of why out of the mid blocker choice, Ione in my opinion is going to be the best choice here. Okay. So this is going to be, in my opinion, the best power attacking team. You basically have Iwazuyumi mainly serving the role as a receiver, and then you have Hoshiyumi mainly to serve the role as a blocker. However, he should be built more as a hybrid blocker and also power attacker. And the reason for this is so that when you are out of skills between Kunami and also Sakusa, Hoshiyumi can also chip in to do that spike. And only in the worst case scenario, you'll be using Iwazuyumi's power spike. Okay. Now, there's three of them, Kunami, Sakusa, and Hoshiyumi, also have a pretty good synergy amongst them as well, because Sakusa actually want to stack up his buff in order to make his spike stronger. So he's a character who will be spiking harder towards the end of match, and same thing with Hoshiyumi, especially if you actually play his memory. He is basically going to require like 5 critical action to actually fully stack his own buff as well. So both Sakusa and Hoshiyumi actually get stronger towards the end of match, whereas Kunami spike, he start off with 3 back-to-back ultimate attack that he can actually spam. So the 3 of them are actually synergize quite well in terms of timing as well. Okay, so that is basically the way I would do it. And then, like I said, in terms of the potential build for Oikawa, I would do vice serve rather than anything else. And the main reason is that basically there are 2 characters who will be serving, and Oikawa is able to give basically his serving stats as a buff to both of the characters. It was Yumi and also Hoshiyumi. So I do feel like serve is actually going to be quite nice as the potential for Oikawa. Now, this is going to be the, I guess, somewhat incomplete best power sparking team because, like I said, I feel like SP Ushijima, whenever he's out, he will definitely be able to replace at least one of Kunami and also Sakusa. And once you do that, you no longer need Hoshiyumi as a blocker either, because I no longer need that him to be like a hybrid blocker and also spiking at the same time. So I will probably then change him to an actual dedicated blocker. Okay, so that was probably going to be the most optimal power spiking team once SP Ushijima is going to be out. But for the purpose of this event giveaway, this is right now, in my opinion, the best power spiking team that we can currently build. Okay, now let's review of the submissions for this week's power team. Now, for this one, there's actually one occurring issue I see in a lot of the team building, which is the lack of spiking rotation. I'm going to take one team as an example, but I will just quickly flick through all of them and just point out the ones where, spiking rotation is going to be an issue, okay? Team number 1, this is actually the only team without a spiking rotation issue, so I'm going to give you a pass on that. But you do have a problem in terms of your rotations, in the sense that you have your 2 blockers both on the front row, so you're going to definitely be ending up with no blocks, 3 rotations in, which is definitely something you want to consider. The other thing is that with Oikawa, you definitely don't want him to be opposite Bokuto, because Bokuto is just not able to actually use his skills till at least the 4th turn in, so your attack tempo stack is going to go very, very slowly here, okay? So instead, what you should be doing is Hoshiyumi, Oikawa diagonally opposite Hoshiyumi instead, because Hoshiyumi can actually use his block skill and also spike skill to quickly build up the attack tempo for Oikawa. So that's going to be the review for the very first submission. Second submission, you have no blocker here, okay? So that's going to be a very painful thing. Basically, you'll be letting all of the enemy spike goes right through. Third submission, this is going to be the example I'm going to take for lack of spiking rotation. This is actually quite similar team I see in a lot of rotations, in a lot of submissions. So it's actually going to be a good example. But basically, if you actually take a look at your team as it is, Bokuto is not actually able to spike till 4th turn in, because that's just the way he is. He won't be able to use his ultimate unless he's in Team Morale Awakening, and he can only get 14 morale points every single turn. So he literally won't be able to do anything till 4th turn, okay? Kuro and Aone, they have no attacks at all. Iwazuyumi, like I said, you should be building him with a receiving potential. So yes, whilst he can spike, his spike is going to be super weak. Akasshi doesn't really have any option to attack till he's actually rotated to the front. So if you actually take a look at this team, what you then realize is that the only one who can actually do a strong spiking skill is going to be Sakusa. And that's it. You literally need to use Sakusa for the first 3 turns till you don't have a second strong spiking option in the form of Bokuto. And that's kind of what you're going to end up with serious issue bricking yourself in terms of your power spike. Yes, you may be able to get away with using SP Wazuyumi every now and then because he does have a spiking skill. But like I said, because of the way you'll be building your potential, his spike is not going to be strong at all. Okay, so that's kind of why this is a common theme I see in a lot of submissions. I'm just going to use this as an example because I don't want to repeat myself over and over again. But in the following submissions, when I say there's a spike in rotation, that's basically what I mean. Like vast majority of the time, you are kind of bricking yourself to only one strong spikers for a proportion of the match. Okay, so that's going to be the issue for this submission. For this submission, so this was an interesting one. First of all, you do have a bit of a spiking rotation issue as well because you only have Hoshiyumi and Kunami, and basically you're going to have brick yourself towards the end of the match after Kunami spam off his attack. But the other thing is also I wasn't too sure in terms of the reason why you are playing Kageyama. You did write quite a lot of commentary in terms of who do you actually want to win out of the deployment bomb between Oikawa and Kageyama, but I don't actually see any reasoning as to why Kageyama even need to be on the field in the first place, because I did actually consider this option, but I don't think the deployment bomb by itself is actually able to justify actually playing Kageyama over, let's say, another spiker. So that's kind of why I feel like, well, at least I'm not very clear in terms of why Kageyama needs to be on this team instead of someone else. And also with Kageyama on this team, like I said, you're going to end up with an issue of actually bricking yourself in terms of your power spike towards the end of the match. This one, similar issue, because you actually have two setters, you're going to end up bricking yourself. Aone doesn't have any attacks. You will be bricking yourself kind of early on in this match, basically for the first 3 turns. Yes, Akasshi at least is positioned up front, but that can only buy you 1 attack, okay? Your Hoshiyumi plus Akasshi is not able to sustain yourself all the way till Bokuto is actually able to spike. And then by the time Akasshi is rotated to the back, and before your Bokuto is able to enter Team Morale Awakening again, once again, you're going to brick yourself, because very likely by that time, your Hoshiyumi may even be ended rotated to the back as well, okay? So you definitely have an issue in terms of your power spiking rotation towards the end of the match. This one, once again, you're going to have an issue towards the end of the match as well. Because you have Kunami, you should be fine for at least the first 3 or 4 turns. But from, like, I would probably say from the 5th turn onwards, Akasshi will be rotated to the back. Kunami will be out of his ultimate reset cooldown as well. Bokuto won't be able to enter his second Team Morale Awakening, and then you will end up with bricking yourself in terms of power spiking options. And then same thing for this one as well. You have both Aone and Kuro, and that basically means you are already lacking some attacking option here. Akasshi, yes, he's able to do that, but he won't be able to sustain yourself for the whole time, okay? Sakusa, once again, is kind of only going to be your own main power spiking option for vast majority of the match. So yeah, so that's kind of the review of all of the submissions. I feel like a lot of people, I guess it's a bit of a funny thing because this is supposed to be a power spiking team, and I guess a lot of you guys probably saw SP Wazumi because he does have a power spiking skill. He should be enough, but the reality is you should be building him with receiving potential stats, and as a result, his power spike is just not going to be good enough, to be honest. So after reviewing of the submissions, I am going to decide for the winner to be a donut, because I guess just in the spirit of a power spiking team, I feel like one of the first things that should be look at is that whether or not you actually have strong enough power spike for the whole match, and a donut is the only one I can see without a power spiking rotation issue, okay? So the winner for this week is going to go to a donut. And then the last event is going to be club contest for week 4. I only got 1 submission this time around, so by default the winner is going to be Aranji here as well, okay? So congrats to both of you guys. Oh, before I close off the video, there's one other thing I just remember. There's one more giveaway event, which is going to be make your own SP characters. The submission for that is already over. However, it's currently at the stage of the community vote, where you can choose who actually have the best design out of all of your submitted SP characters, okay? So do check that out. The voting, I think, is only going to be open for another day. There are lots of really cool designs there, so definitely, take a look at all of them and choose your best ones. And once again, there will be some winners, giveaway winners out of that as well, and I will announce that once the voting has actually closed. All right, so that's going to be it for today's video. See you guys next time.